All right. I love this. I love this. I love this. See, when they send me really mean comments with this type of words, I would read it and I go, they care about me so much. I genuinely think that these people just care, and it's a good thing, right? When they say they don't care, it's not what they actually mean. It's like a girl whenever they get nervous around a guy they like or something. But this isn't a girl. This is just a person who is probably most likely 12 years old or a 17-year-old, who I wouldn't know, right? But you can't assume gender nowadays. Yeah, absolutely. That's why they probably are scared of disclosing that because their name is called useless cashier. Cashier. My bad. By the way, welcome to This is not a new Roblox video. This is a different one. I want to read this comment. These are the types of comments I get every day. Let me tell you, doing my job is quite hard when you deal with all these sorts of things, right? All these types of people. But it is always entertaining to see really juicy comments like these, and I want to read it out to you now. Now YouTube will probably demonetize this. If the channel was monetized, this would be demonetized if I had read every single word it had written down to me. So let me explain what this user is probably misunderstanding, because they seemingly definitely look like the type to have dyslexia and ADHD at the same time. Because look, people who are like that are not necessarily more dumber. They're not dumber. It's mainly something to do with their brain. I've seen people who have dyslexia are still able to do their job. For example, Gavin Newsom is able to, well, put down words together, but he's not able to have studied like the way he used to do. He has a few things with him, just like Donald Trump is. Well, Donald Trump's a different story. He's actually stupid and also like these qualities, right? The sickness actually makes sense on it, but on Gavin Newsom's a different story. For example, me. Most would call me mental illnesses or assume I have mental illnesses, but when they go there, it is because they're scared and probably don't understand a piece of shit that they even talk about. They most of the time don't know what the fuck they're on and probably are on drugs, right? Because most times I talk to people who call me mental illnesses, most likely it's because they want to direct the conversation away from the main topic. Like, I remember asking my father, okay, what is democratic socialism? And he wasn't able to answer, and he would start calling me gay. Well, that's because he doesn't know what it means. So that's the thing conservatives do. Now, the thing is, my father's a respectable man and not a conservative person, but most conservatives, this is a different way of deflection, right? Deflection. Conservatives would use things like that. Whenever they don't know something, they just change the topic by forcibly adding in something really distracting, by saying, well, if they can't define something, they just say, but you're a leftist. Now, that's an antagonizing word. It's supposed to bait you into going, I'm a leftist, and force you to change topic. Things that people don't want to see me doing in conversations, which I always do, is stay on topic, which is something that pisses off a lot of people. Is because then when I stay on topic, they say, you're so fixated and dramatic. I'm like, you just called me a leftist. You're using antagonizing words that elicit conflict, aggravation, confusion, misunderstanding, two-sided conversations where you know what leftist means inside of you rather than my perception of leftist, right? And unfortunately, a good oxymoron for it is Japan. The Democratic Party of Japan is actually conservative. The conservative side of Japan is oddly the more democratic side of Japan, right? If we were to put it in the United States, you would see the very difference between them. So most countries don't see leftists the same way. So now let's finally break down this comment, because we first have to explain how the argumentative mindset of a person who's probably letting off on a tangent is supposed to work, right? You're supposed to understand why they go on a tangent, why they deflect, and why they change topic, and then why they start cursing and saying a bunch of names and slurs, right? We have to understand why that happens. Alright, so here's a really good hate comment, Needless Soup, for me. I appreciate that. You really care about my work. Alright, let's get this straight, because this is just flat stupid. Excuse my voice. This guy has made a video on me because I literally use actual front logic to literally prove his point is fucking stupid. I debunked that in the video. As a matter of fact, you sent me nothing. Ignoring. Alright, you have got to be an unemployed 27-year-old. My information about my age is very public. I'm in fact 20 years old. Not 27 years old. But Look, if you think I look 27 in your eyes, I don't know where you got the number from. Maybe somebody told you something, but maybe you made it up, but you probably most likely made this up. My information is literally very public. You can find my age, my face, my voice online. Anyways, who's still friendly living in your dead father's basement to make stupid shrat like this? All right, so the living in your dead father. So fortunately, my father's still alive. He's alive and kicking. Really strong person. He's not. We don't even have a basement because, as a matter of fact, in Florida, you can't build basements without hitting a pipe, because we're so low under sea level that we can't actually build basements in Florida all the time, because that would be really dangerous and it's expensive. It's more done in countries where the sea level elevation is a lot more different, right? It's very different. It's very lower. So that would affect basement builds. So you most likely, from this information, this is just an insult with no credible source, right? You're an anti-AI person and it's friendly acknowledgeable, but it doesn't mean the slightest friendly use of AI has to have hate and negativity thrown towards the faces of creators. You can't even spell or structure your sentence properly. Go back to English too. You probably middle school English would be enough for you. All right, so to explain anti-AI person, no, that's a little bit too broad. Anti-AI means all AI. I'm not all anti-AI. As a matter of fact, I happen to be part generalist myself, along with Motonist. I'm not anti-AI. I'm more against the very corrupt, unethical, and hatred-filled corporate consolidation type of factor about the usage of AI. Crypto could have been a real good thing if it weren't so involved with fraud and scam. Just like AI usage doesn't have to necessarily be used and associated with scams and fraud. And unfortunately, these things are always novelty things. And whenever a CEO invents something like that and decides to rather go for a more smarter decision, they go for fraud and scams and then lobbying and all that. And unfortunately, that's what's been happening in the tech scene. So, I'm not anti-AI. You don't have to worry about that. Now, this is supposed to be a very, very aggressive comment, but rather than, yelling on my mic again, because I already did that yesterday, I'm just going to logically break this down with no aggression at all. Like, I already understand people's confusion. So, I hope this video helps you. And this also says, in your logic, you point hate towards talented creators who use AI for the cover art, lore, and to enhance the thrilling audios of the song. Yes, I do that, and I'll continue to do that. Why? Because it is a freedom that I have to tell creators who basically do consumer deception, fraud, and also fake most of their art and their personality and identity in normal level skill of musicianship, that I am able to confront them because, well, they're faking everything, they're scamming their audiences, and they're growing a very toxic community around the different places where they basically call artists the evil blue Satan or something, right? They call them Satanists or something. They call them devils. Artists because artists for some reason craft things out of thin air, right? When they draw a pencil or a pen on their piece of paper, because they think that's a very devilish thing. When somebody actually draws art with their real hands, with like a living body. So when I see people try to use their platform to demonize other forms of people that have been around for centuries, like artists, for example, have been around for centuries. When I do that, yeah, I have to point hate towards creators who are not talented. By the way, DY Cement is not talented themselves. They can't bring credentials or proof of their skill. I've broken down their use of AI tools, right? So all their music is mainly AI assisted. So when it's fully AI assisted, yeah, it's harder to defend talent associated with them, right? I don't promote the use of AI for extra strat that needs talent, like making the melodies, but you have to be feeling rage baiting to be this feeling stupid. Who's rage baiting? I wish, but every time these days I say something factually correct or too logical for somebody who might be rather going for more sporadic senses of argumentative clauses, whenever I say something more factual or logical, it usually is perceived as rage bait, but I'm actually more trying to help find where the people is at with the current level of understanding during an argument rather than trying to finish the argument. I'm trying to understand why they're aggressing me in the first place, right? I had to first understand that you can't just assume on people, because I learned very well when people assume things, you know where that goes. Both sides will start assuming, and then they'll start inventing things and then get mad at each other and then separate, disassociate, and those things happen. This happened to me numerous times with people I know who are very nearby me, who often like to throw and change topic, get really dissociated, very dismissive, get aggressive, usually yell or get really physical, or say random slurs and get really demeaning or very aggravated for no reason, even though I'm very skinny, underweight, and have been using more faggots and faggots and all these other things to help sustain my belief with more formative, explorative, experimental, thought precise theoreticals that I can visit and prove on different statistical means. And when I get that way, people would get mad and say that I'm rage baiting. So if that looks like I'm trying to defraud their talent, it's not defrauding their talent. It is more they are using their face, their likeliness to send hate to people who are doing things out of love and passion and peace. So DY Cement isn't doing that. He isn't using his fame for good things, right? And I'm using my fame and attention and my lack of pride to help people get on the same level with me. And every time I get on the same level, they usually get mad when I try to show them compassion, because then they think I'm giving them pity. And unfortunately, misunderstandings and miscommunications really common thing where I am, because unfortunately most people love to skip the resolution and don't want to talk about things, and usually want to skip to the worst parts of human life, which is discriminating against people and getting mad with them and saying, if you don't, if you're not me, I'm gonna kill you, or I'm gonna get mad at you because you're different and so I hate you. So when we see differences visible in people, you shouldn't go to hate you, I will kill you, or I will leave you and abandon you. You want to first understand why people are different from you. And if somebody doesn't want to involve themselves with understanding why somebody has a different brain or mindset, then that person is self-centered and is most likely doesn't want to learn about things, and most likely hates being wrong and being told that their narrative is a false demeanor and very huge delusional impact the great mind that developed in their head for the past few years. Another one is, it says right here is, now I don't care what this creator felon thinks of me, I think it's just funny how simple idiots like these think that anyone who uses the slightest thing that they hate should be executed publicly. Now, DY Cement is not somebody who I want executed publicly. DY Cement is somebody who I want to be paid fairly and be given a shot at music. If DY Cement wants to pursue music, I want them to properly take a really good shot at pursuing music. If they're not paid fairly, DY Cement resorts to using AI tools because they're not able to afford that time and not able to make time to be able to enjoy what they want to enjoy, is making music. If they don't enjoy making music, this is merely consumer deception and is called a runoff career, where you basically keep it running until you drop it and you say goodbye, right? That's a runoff career. Now, DY Cement hasn't fully disclosed that, and most likely these are DY Cement's viewers being sent from their Discord, making fun of me and probably sending names. So no, you're wrong. Another one is so you said other people pointed this out too, but you never claim an actual friendly agreement because all you're friendly do is brag, promote yourself, and stroke your small D-word ego. Alright, so let me help debunk this random, this is not even a paragraph, it's just like an abomination of a sentence that has no proper punctuation, commas, and apostrophes. And it doesn't even use capitals, right? Like you can see how many times they use capitals at the start of a point where there's supposed to be a comma and it heads into like a random capital letter. So they definitely typed this while probably consuming lots of sugar, and we're probably drinking 5 hour, like they're probably taking medications during this. So I hope you're doing well. But let me explain this. So this is absolutely nothing, right? Nothing. I can ignore that. So This is all you do is from brag. Alright. So DIY Cement, when they brag, absolutely nobody cares. When DIY Cement brags or promotes their content, nobody cares. So let me help explore and explain to you how the music industry works. So in the music industry, if you stay silent or are too scared to voice out your creativity, most likely you will not make it in the music industry unless somebody has, for some reason, celebrity connections and can put you in the music industry, get you a label like signing, and then get you a producer who will produce music for you. Unless you have that, all you could only do in music is promote your name. You have to promote your name, your music. So this is not bragging. This is more, I generally need to promote my music, right? And I have a community that help basically represent parts of that music when my music doesn't sound like it's meant to instigate aggravation, violence, discrimination, and really horrible behavior. When most of my server I try to keep in behavior, because most of my cadets have way better behavior than DIY Cement's cadets, right? If I were to think of them as cadets, DIY Cement's own server members are, well, toxic. They're really low intelligence, low IQ people. And they most of the time are most likely 34-year-olds or a teenager who is angsty and a child who only just discovered DIY Cement. And arguing with a child and a man-child in their 40s is not the wisest thing I can do now. It's probably a waste of time, and calling me a man-child, it makes no sense, right? And if you say stroke your small D word ego, ego is not about having a small D word. As a matter of fact, ego is often associated with somebody who is tall, who is probably muscular, who's probably really airheaded and is really hard in the head and really hard to get through. That's what usually people associate ego with. That's not what you should probably put me with, because I'm the exact opposite of muscular, airheaded, and hard-headed either. And other options you can associate me with. There could be better roles you can send me. A few more things for you to understand is I'm simply making a fun point. No, all you did was yanter. This is just yanter. You're gonna need to threaten doxing or threatening my family to be this needy. Who threatened you? Who's threatening your family? I have not threatened your family. I think with how your name is called Useless Cashier and your username basically says CJ Games, you're most likely a kid. And no, nobody's here to kill each other's families. Killing each other's families online is really dumb. It's also illegal. By the way, doxing is illegal in Florida. Should be a full-on law, by the way. So no, this is a nothing burger. Now I don't condone hating this idiot, but this guy has to be employed because of the bullshit he's done. I have no idea who this is for. Who is this for? Okay, then it says, I don't support your work, but oh my goodness. It's annoying to see you're stupid from an ego filling my day. Is this supposed to be ChatGPT? Like, is this autofill? I don't know. This sentence looks like it's autofill. Like, you know how this sentence looks like it's autofill? Like, whenever you press the options and it fills out the sentence for you, you just type the words. He probably filled this last part with like autofill, ignoring that. So any more content you try to make off of me, do not friend post it. It's no friend me, you dumb strat. Yes, I will post it again. So this is the second video. So yes, I'll make fun of you more. And throw off my D word. If you're a minor, no, I don't want to touch you and I don't want to see you. Right? This right here is unnecessary. This right here is just who is asking to be on your D word. Now, if this is supposed to be an idiom, that was a horrible shot at it. This is extremely adult. This doesn't have to be said. Stop mute writing. This channel is operated by one person, myself. This channel is operated by one person. You can't say meat writing. As a matter of fact, DIY Cement literally does things by themselves for their channel, because they don't really trust people. They also ask help from the people that they know in real life about it. So that makes no sense. Then actually you care about your sub more than you care about others' opinion. Yeah, I do care about myself more than the other opinions that I usually get, which are usually like this of yours. I got more important trying to do. Okay, then do that. Then to listen to this unemployed fellow yap. You just said I'm employed or unemployed as a 27-year-old in a dead father's basement, but my father's alive and basements can't be built in Florida. My information is public. And ramble without a sentence is still you can't spell a sentence and still have the audacity to try and get the slightest more of attention. Yes, I can't because that's my job. You make music and art and writing and you tell stories and you talk to people. You kind of do have to ask for attention because you really don't have a choice in this economy. You ain't changing strat, you see brain. So this one is just random yatter. And then we have this last thing here, which is called one last thing before I completely disappear, your shiny little anti-AI channel. You didn't disappear my channel. My channel's still here. It's been 9 days. Alright, if you need to work 80 minutes a friendly day just because you want to make 4 different friendly videos on hating someone's sounding work is stupid. Move on, I swear to God. So I'm not religious, and this is completely useless. Also, if you need 80 works a friendly day, right? Minutes a friendly day just because. So this makes no sense. This clearly shows that they don't know how to edit videos. So when you edit an 80-minute video, that doesn't mean you spend 80 minutes editing a video. So I don't know if this user is probably a child. I'm just gonna assume it's a child. Whenever they said this part, this was unnecessarily adult language. It's inappropriate. Alright. So this also is just more proof that they probably don't know how YouTube works. So when you edit a video that's probably over 10 minutes, 20 minutes, that doesn't mean you spend 10-20 minutes editing it. That took most likely for most content creators I see out there who have to travel outside or go out to things or take photos or screenshot or put down together scripts. They usually take more than just 80 minutes to edit a video. By the way, most of those videos are over lots of hours of content of me exposing different people besides DYSMN, and people are able to do that. If you're able to go out of your way to send me comments with lots of slurs, bad words, and hateful commentary, then I should be able to send you logical, debunking, fact-checking commentary back so I can give you a sort of where I am, right? A sort of perspective on that so that you can see where I am. So you have to live with that, and so this channel won't stop operating. I'll continue to post, and it seems that in the duration of the past 9 days, my channel is still operating and absolutely nothing changed. So good attempt, but it could have been better. But I will tell you, nice, good hate comment. I really enjoyed the hate comment. It's really insightful, and I appreciate comments like this because it shows you care. And I will not stop making content off of you if you continue this behavior, because I can, and it's free speech. And you conservatives awfully hate it when free speech is used back against you, because if the free speech doesn't go your way, then it doesn't count for some reason. So stay safe out there, protest peacefully. What do you say about me is what you say about society. But that's for 8 years. Stay safe. Seriously, don't do really bad things. You're just going to antagonize people and get really violent. And as well as that is the don't do really horrible things like what the conservatives are doing out there. Is, well, these comments I hope are an insight to the types of things I get sent every day. There are more comments I can pick from that are just people being absolutely negative and really demeaning to me. Now, for those who are new to the channel or who still doesn't understand what I'm talking about, who probably are people who don't ever ask about my life or anything, most people would know that I've received so many hate comments for 8 years that it's just, I'm desensitized to it. Like there are times where I have to act like I'm actually mad or very pissed just to get retention, right? Like, for example, the videos where I often get more vocally loud, but that doesn't mean that I'm talking in my real voice. I still have to keep it low. If people think this voice is too loud, trust me, when I used to record videos in 2023, my voice was louder. My voice is being very limited, but back in the day, I had to genuinely talk more louder because that was my normal talking, speaking volume. In these videos, nor these days in 2026, I had to fake being mad to get a sense of emotion out there so people can digest it and give a sense of living out my emotional state in the video, is to give them a perception and sensation. When they get frustrated by that, then that's working. The video's working on them. That's the purpose of me being extremely honest in the videos. When I show people both sides of the argument, it gives you eye-opening revelations about my character. Is that most of the time I'm supposed to be apathetic, and most people want to see me for that because they say, but Viz, you're confrontational and you even yell sometimes. That is just because whenever I talk to people who are usually more inferior or more less intelligent than I am, or less experienced and less expansive in mindset than I am, I have to usually translate my brain's more apathetic talking style and turn it into something more emotional, more exposed, raw, and more chaotic, so I can help fit their mental chemistry, right? That's what I have to do with every single person I talk to. Most of the times, these people are a lot more smaller in IQ than I am by comparative size. But again, I have to usually talk to them in a way that's easier to understand. But whenever I start talking more like I'm supposed to, like the way I really want to talk, is quieter, more reserved, more observational, more apathetic, lower in voice volume, unless I have to go up to my normal voice volume. Be more strategic, logical, factual, less yelling, less, faces, less confrontational. It's more like I'm confronting you very quietly and softly. Like people when they say, I'm softly punching you, right? I'm like softly confronting you and giving you insight while you argue with me in a very heated manner. So I could have always done that to people, but when you give them that, they think you're mocking them. So unfortunately, with how the world is, not everybody is apathetic like I am, and not everybody is as quiet as I am when I'm supposed to be quiet, right? When you continue to be quiet, most likely they walk away thinking they are correct or are still superior to you inside their head. That's what you usually leave the impression in. And unfortunately, that has something to do with their ego, their pride, their self-respect, their honesty, and their chivalrous side that still for some reason exists inside their body. So that's all I have is that's some final commentary from my side. And I hope to see more hate comments like these because it helps you understand that whenever I see hate comments like these, I'm just already desensitized to it. It's like old arguments. And when I see make comments or content that's more modern, right, that fits the current era, even hate comments then are still the same, right? It's just a new word, a new replacement that's going on. Back in 2020 and 2021, which I'll switch the screen. I'm gonna switch the screen because this is gonna be something I want to show the people. So with how hate is very different for different current eras. Like I had the same exact comments for hate or misunderstanding when people came back in the day when we were on this entire tirade around vaccines. If vaccines cause autism and these old, regular conservative arguments, the same people would be telling me the same comments, the same type of hate on my channel. They tell me the same exact thing. Let me explain what that is. When I delved into my channel back in the day, when it was only like around 2 to 3 years old, I still had the same hate. Same hate. It's just different words, different people, different situations, different irony, different verbal abuse, different things. Still the same hatred, still the same confusion, still the same newborn comments. On this channel, I often find newborn comments that usually leave comments that are obviously showing of how much they have not watched this channel. This channel is supposed to be a channel that forces people to catch up with every video upload and post that I make because unfortunately, it is impossible to make content in this channel that is supposed to be gaming friendly and fun to watch because as much as I want to record a gaming video and basically fool around, everywhere around me on the world is just a new form of terror that's going on in the government. And so it's hard for me to ignore those things when most of the thing that makes me up as a moteness is to have to care about what people do on my surroundings. Most people that send me hate do not care. They don't care about their surroundings or other people but themselves, and then throw that I care about myself more while they care about themselves in the whole time. So This is projection. It's projection. Haters love to project their feelings and throw those things that they don't want connotated to themselves onto people who they see as inferior, as dumber, or some race that's less than they are, or a different class, because their skin looks different, or their eyes or I sound a certain way. My voices seem to be like that. People continue to say it's nerdy, and I'm like, I don't care. As a matter of fact, people would. There's so many different types of communities out there that whenever I speak, people have different reactions to my voice or my appearance. Ones would say, let's start with the negative ones, right? Let's start with negative because I know we'll get into positives. So most people would say, you look like an Indian. Or he has this really strange accent. I'm like, I'm speaking with normal English. There's no Indian descent. It's obviously supposed to be a racial joke. They're racially profiling me. I know what they're doing. I'm not oblivious. So I act offended to help understand where they're coming from. And often they lay it down for me by explaining why they think I look Indian in a very insulting way. Or some people said, you sound like you have a nerdy voice. That's not from my voice. That's from my avatar. My avatar has glasses on it. Funny enough, people used to be called people with glasses in school nerd for a really good reason and for a bad reason. In my era, having a nerd work with you in a team project was a good thing because the people could rely on you. They said you were smart, you were intelligent, and you were really clear, direct, and easy to understand because you know what you're talking about in the class. When I reach comments or video game experiences, I wear glasses anywhere, and people immediately go, he's a nerd, he's a actually person. So why nerds say the actually thing is nothing to do with somebody being stingy, capricious, or very unreliable, or weak, or the P word. It is associated with different things that people misconstrued over a period of time. When nerds say the actually statement, that doesn't mean that they're always going to say it. Most of the time that when people say something really unfactual, I know this is a fake word, but trust me, wait for this. When somebody says something really that's not really factually proven, or it's like a joke, it's severely misaligned, it's gonna give miscommunication, it's gonna misinform people, it's obviously gonna lead into conspiracy theories. When that happens, a nerd comes in and goes, actually. It forces them to say, actually. How else would you respond? You'd have to avoid the actually phrase as much as possible. If you're somebody who's really experienced in their field, most of the time when you hear somebody say something that's obviously misinformed or non-intelligent, you have to step in and say, that's not right, that's not correct. And when you usually tell people that, they usually get really mad and usually go to the internet or look for narratives or cherry pick stories to try to debunk the thing that has millions of research papers backing up your statement because science said so and because science is recordable, measurable, and it's not saying always 100% right, but more right than somebody saying that vaccines cause autism. So you can get a perspective of the type of stupidity nerds have to deal with these days. So whenever people do get mad at those types of commentaries or whatever that they work on or bring up, whenever they do that, nerds have to usually step in. It's the thing with my channel. You have so much intelligence, so much information stored inside your head, and you have to use it. And when somebody finally gives you the opportunity to use that intelligence you worked so hard to study or understand with elaborate meaning, when people send hate comments to me, I see it as an opportunity, not like an entrepreneur who wants to scam people, but an opportunity on this context to use the intelligence I have to debunk a comment saying something that's obviously misinforming, very antagonizing and aggressive. It is not in a means of me trying to look cool or better. It is a means of me practicing how much I know, and for how much I don't know, I learn throughout the process. That is another part of humans when they grow. You grow to understand that you know so much, but you don't know everything, and so you still have to experience those things to understand them. You also have to understand the information you use. There are people who would say that the climate is getting worse. True, true. Now I'll use an example. I'm going to use that as an example. But there are people who say that climate change exists, but actually don't understand what that means, right? You can say that you hate racism, but do you truly understand what hating racism is like? How would you approach disliking racism? Like how you would approach climate change. Not the same means, different effort, different context, different reason, different industry, different community. You'll end up finding that along the way whenever you deal with hate comments or communities or different people with all sorts of different backgrounds, and you'll figure out that most of them are different, which is why most people, whenever they wisen up or grow up, often learn the life lesson that most people often, which you would think will look similar or behave in similar ways, are just different people who are simply trying to stay safe and keep face because they want to fit in something that helps give them an identity or a type of responsibility that makes them feel like they are doing something with their life, which is why most haters would project this statement to me all the time, which is that you're doing nothing with your life, or that you're so dramatic or fixated on this person. And like, you're projecting what you feel and what you intend to do onto me. Through your hatred, you're just projecting what you truly want to do. You want to truly spew what you're accusing me of. Fixation. You want to be dramatic. You want to have feeling. You want to feel responsible for sending me hatred. You want to feel like you're doing something good. So you have a community that you would return to feel relatable with. That is part of the social reform aspect and networking effect at play. When I deal with haters, I don't think of them as units, as bots. And as much as I call them names or funny derogatory terms, I generally mean human connotations. I mean human connotations with that. I mean implementing empathy while practicing apathy during the process of acting of dealing with somebody who was like that. This is why when I see hatred, I don't see hatred and dislike the same way. Dislike and hatred are very different words and very different in use. And most times people can't understand the difference between dislike or hatred. This is something that has unfortunately to do with how the industry and economy goes, when people are taught that if you hate something, you probably should hate it with everything you got. And unfortunately, this makes it hard for people to change their mind. It leads to people hurting each other, to people disagreeing with each other because they think that with effort, their point will be correct. And so they purposely trap themselves in a loop of cognitive feedback meant for negative constructive criticisms that might end up employing on their mental behavior and mental health, which will damage their centrifugal forces that are building up in their head meant for empathy, apathy, understanding, and observation, which usually should be the thing operating and rotating around your brain whenever you argue with somebody. Arguing, debating are not the same things, and often when I tell people that I'm debating them, they originally think that I'm trying to argue with them and trying to disagree with them so I can antagonize them, when the really actual intention that I want to do and spread the message for is that I'm not trying to antagonize anybody. I simply want to understand you because you're sending me hatred. When you dislike me or dislike things that I do, that doesn't mean you hate me as a person. For example, I had somebody explain to me that they were trying to word this together, and I helped them word it when they were in dislike or hate. where they were blinded by fury and aggravation. And I said, do you dislike this or do you hate this? And they weren't able to tell the difference because they were in a very sporadic explosion of emotional discharge while spewing their hatred on me with slurs and insults, all these things. And I said, do you know dislike and hate? What is the difference? And when I said that, it surely took them by shock when I said, well, for example, NVIDIA is like somebody I'm neutral with. I explain this to people when they say, so if you dislike this thing that NVIDIA does this constitute that you hate all of NVIDIA? I'm like, no. I said I dislike this specific action that they're doing, and as NVIDIA is a really expensive, high worth valued company in the world, which is the largest one so far, besides Arabian companies, it is owned by numerous different people. So when people operate like that underneath NVIDIA's hood, you know that NVIDIA doesn't actually operate by themselves with one guy handling all the conversations. NVIDIA needs a group of thousands and thousands of people, or very few. Most of the times they do actions that often really get people on their nerves. So when I say, oh, this DLS thing that NVIDIA does is really awful and disgusting and an insult to artists, when I say that, am I talking about all artists in general? Am I talking about NVIDIA in general? And often people do not understand what general knowledge is. General knowledge is not nuanced knowledge. Nuanced knowledge and general knowledge are very different things. So most times when I argue with people or debate them, and unfortunately through arguments, people learn it the hard way when I say something that they don't understand or probably never understood the entire metaphoric ability of. For example, I remember telling somebody saying, that's just really unnuanced. It's not nuanced. Your argument is really flat. When I say that, the person gets really mad and they said, that's so rude of you. You're trying to think that I have a mental illness. And they immediately jump to mental illness after I say that. And I go, no, I said your argument is flat because NVIDIA is doing this for profit. And then they'd end up, here's the thing, this is a really crazy thing that I end up learning when people try to argue with me while I try to debate. So as they try to force arguments, I only infer, basically, if you know what I mean. I usually infer on debates because they don't allow me to debate them properly as they continue to use arguments against me very flawlessly. So whenever I say that, I say, well, they're doing it for profits. And they go, and here's the crazy thing, they end up trying to invent a reason for the company, on behalf of the company, even though they don't work on the company, they don't work at the company, they're just trying to argue for the company. They want to defend it badly, and they want to have reason to defend the company. They make up all sorts of things in stories, narratives, and start cherry picking stories, right? This is a common thing I end up dealing with when I have people who argue with me while I try to debate them, and while they don't understand that I'm trying to debate them and I actually try to ruin their life, because most times dislike and hatred are often confused and often too sadly broadly mixed together. Whenever I do those things, they deflect, they project, they end up infatuating themselves with things that they badly want to do, and it's fixate on me, get mad at me, call me names, and trying to purposely demean me or be really incohesive, right? So with that, you would now start to see why I don't look at hate the same way. As much as I have to fake my emotions or expressions and show less apathy to people who I argue with, most times when people notice that I yell at times, when I yell, that is an act. This is an act. I don't even have to yell. I could talk quieter and the person would be annoyed at me talking quieter, right? Because then they'd show fear, right? It showed fear, retraction. It showed me being a P word if I talked quieter. But most people, whenever it goes on for half an hour, they end up generally feeling that I'm legit. Give it a half an hour. That's the attention span somebody has during an argument. It's usually half an hour, and at that point, you're just like, why are you arguing? There's no reason, no purpose. All you did was argue with somebody, it dragged. What did you learn? Nothing. You have similar features and you have differences. Do your differences constitute you should die? Does it mean that you cannot be liked? No, you're a different human being. You're materialistically different. You have different meanings of words that you use. Your use of pride is not the same use of pride in somebody else's vocabulary. This is something to do with logical faults that end up building in people over the period of years. An example is that most would say that if I can't cook as a man, let's bring sexism in this, because this is a very ironic thing that happens to me every time. They say that I can't cook as a man, so I'm basically a lazy basement dweller. But when somebody says that I can cook as a man, they say that I'm very feminine, that I'm very gay, that I know all these things that a woman should be doing instead. So you see, there's two sides of the coin. So you do this, there's that. You do that, they say you're a basement dweller, that you're lazy because you can't cook. So you see, both sides have this in between. But when you meet somebody who has more nuanced knowledge rather than general knowledge usually broadens concepts and makes it easier to fixate on them, because then you're working with so much data. An example of that is art. If you say, what is art? Trust me, you're going to have millions of people trying to explain to you what art is. And they're going to tell you different responses, different answers. They're going to talk about their grandma. Maybe they'll talk about World War II. They'll talk about why chicken has something to do with art. They'll tell you because God. They'll tell you because the space and the cost. A lot of people would have different reasons for art. They will not define art the same way. If I had tried to tell you what art is, most people are just going to tell you wrong, or tell me wrong, no matter what I say. But when you say, all right, what is a watercolor? How should watercolor be used? How should oil paint be used? And you still have people arguing about how oil paint and watercolor should be done. It's too broad. But then you say, all right, let's get really specific here. How should you use oil paint? Where and when? Why? Where you live? And how much it costs? Should it cost more or less? And most times people cannot have that type of nuanced knowledge. Once you get to nuanced knowledge, suddenly people would stop focusing on trying to be right. They end up starting to focus on trying to understand. They'll begin to observe things much more vividly in their brain once you get very specific with things. I tested this on numerous people, on 10 people actually, throughout video game interactions, IRL interactions, through video calls, maybe in-person meets that I had with people. And then they'd have, whenever I get very nuanced, they stop arguing and they start more observing, right? They start observing, listing things that maybe the government could do better, or their parent could do better, or what their brother could do better, or what their brother could do that is very beneficial to maybe friends that they might have that could copy their method in art. So you see, there's really interesting good things that happen when you use nuanced knowledge rather than general knowledge, which is really naive, broad, and too stippling of a thing to do. I don't like it when people do that. This is why I made a video long ago that is straight up called General Music Knowledge is Falling. I had made a video long ago based on music, because then I can go all day about it, right? All day. And I've already done 8-hour videos on it before. I did streams 4 hours in length where I explain things, right? I've done that before. And if I didn't, I did it in a Discord. I typed it all down with paragraphs, sources, links about those things. And that is why when somebody says facts, boy oh boy, immediately antagonizing. So facts necessarily are more complicated than they are supposed to be. They're more complicated than they're supposed to be for what their use is supposed to be initially for, right? Facts are meant to be residual statements that can be built upon and tested and proven, right? Tested, proven, residual statements you can make that can be on the part of many people besides one person's opinion. Whenever somebody says, this is just my opinion, your opinion is absolutely clueless and baseless and useless and has no value. Whenever I tell people to stop using their opinions to, as factual statements, the amount of people I have to tell that to is numerous. Because when I say, okay, but what about facts? You could use facts for really bad things too. For example, can you make more money starting an AI company than starting a company based off art? Most likely, yes, factually, you would make more money with an AI company than an art company. Why is that? Because the tech sector is more involved in that, and you have more opportunities in the tech sector to get invested in. An art company would have less investment because it's more about creative ideals that are a lot more nuanced, more complicated, and very uncertain for investors, which causes uncertainty, fear, and most likely people not wanting to invest in your company. Factually, yes, facts can also be the opposite. They can be used for really negative means. You can say, I have a crypto wallet, I can use it to scam 500 people. Are you factually correct? Yes. That is a really weird thing about facts. It is residual, right? Residual. It's a residual statement that can be built upon. Whenever I use facts, I'm not using facts as if I'm the all say, all mean. It is because those facts can be really tested, proven, and people can look at it, right? You can look at it, you can find it. It can be said by somebody else. You can find it be that somebody else wrote it, maybe possibly long before I did. Like saying, for example, vaccines causing autism, which is not true. Viz, because you said so. Wrong, because these hundreds of thousands of scientists said so. Along with me, along with proven scientific experiments that were tested, proven, repeated, replicated, tested in different countries, different environments, different subjects, different mediums of thinking and cultures, tested that vaccines do not cause autism. So when somebody starts like a conservative, like, so you know why I keep calling people brainwashed. When you see conservatives say, yes it does, it causes autism, now you know why, what I feel like when I hear people say those things. I'm like, you are factually wrong. When I say gas prices and oil prices are rising, it must be because you're using rent more. I'm like, you're stupid. You're factually wrong. When I say that electricity prices are going up because I for some reason live in an apartment, some reason I'm the cause of all of it, I'm saying you're factually wrong because, well, economic prices and Duke Energy and all these other companies are now charging 17 to 25% more for electricity, in which they don't actually have to charge more for electricity. So when people often realize is that you can prove this and test it out. I did this on people and they still get pissed off because then I'm like, all right, measure for 3 months the exact same use of energy you use. Try to use the exact same amount of energy and look at your bills. And you'll notice that your ratepayer bills continue to go up. Why is that? Inflation. You invite somebody over. Let's say it's 2 girls. For some reason you're a guy, you have 2 girlfriends. Let's make this like really stupid, right? I'm just going to use a stupid example. Let's say one girl uses the same amount of electricity and she is more reserved and she's smarter with electricity, right? Ethical use. You're smart with electricity, you know what to do. But then there's the second girl and she uses much more electricity, right? She's more expensive, more docile. Why? Because she uses social media and she makes content creation, so she has to use more electricity. That's just part of it. The other one doesn't do social media and so she loses less. But why explain that? You'd say, but then the electricity bill will go up because therefore she's using more electricity for social media. And then that's when I'm going to be like, you're half right, but you're still lost. So let's say Duke Energy said, I'm going to raise the bill by 16%. Let's say the girl, because she lives there, the overusing of electricity girl, the second girlfriend, uses, let's say, affects 3% of your electricity bill. But then Duke Energy says, I want to higher it by 16% and make you pay 16% more for your bill. So that 3% gets dwarfed by Duke Energy's 16% up rate, right? And then let's say the girl finally stops being abusive with electricity and she starts using less electricity and is more wise with her time and she manages her electricity usage. And you realize, okay, now both your girlfriends are using the same exact amount of electricity. It's balanced. But then Duke Energy says, we're going to raise your bill another 3%. But then you're realizing, and then this is the thing that people get really infuriated by when I finally expose why. Again, people say I'm using so much electricity. I'm like, you're stupid. Stop it. When I see my friends use the same thing, their parents would go, you're using too much electricity. I'm like, Duke Energy did that. Your ratepayer electric company did that. They're hiring prices. Even if you had used less electricity, it is impossible. Why? You have a limit. Say you do online work. You need electricity. Don't be stupid. Right? You need electricity. You will expect a slightly higher electricity bill. That's expected. When Duke Energy hires the rate paying exchange, that is not because you use more electricity. That is because they're hiring the ratepayer exchange, right? They're hiring the price of your electricity. They're forcing it on you. Why? Because then data centers exist. Data centers use lots of electricity. So they force the ratepayers in their city or electrical grid to have to pay more. Duke Energy has to pay more. So what they instead do is, rather than paying it themselves, they pass it off of their consumers who pay for their electricity every month. Houses or apartments or condos. So rather than dealing with the bill themselves, Duke Energy passes it to their consumers and their ratepayers. And so it ends up in a situation where for some reason I get lashed for using electricity when Duke Energy rises electricity bills by themselves and pass the bills from data centers over to the consumers. You could ask somebody in Tallahassee, for example, I'm in Clearwater, in Tallahassee, and say, did your electricity bill go up? And they'd say yes. Go to Miami, ask them, their electricity bill go up. It went up. Same for people in Georgia. Ask people in Georgia, did their electricity bill go up? Absolutely did. Are they using less electricity? Yes. But why are they still getting charged more? That is part of what data centers are doing. They will go to electricity companies and say, hey, we don't want to foot the bill. Pass the bill to your consumers, your ratepayers, your people who pay electricity every time. So then they'll say, all right, we'll just hire the pay on our consumers. And then later you get these things where I get people trying to group up on me saying, you're using too much electricity. Oh, really? Search up data centers in Florida. And it pisses them off when I do that. So this is proven. How can you prove that, Viz? By searching it up. So back on dislike and hate. Stop it. Do not confuse dislike and hate, different things. And when I see people show me hate or confusion or aggression, I'm sad that they're showing me those emotions and projecting their feelings on me in such a really negative connotation, right? They're doing that to themselves. They're basically projecting on me. This is common, unfortunately. So there's that. If any of your cases away for that, hope so. And by the way, I could go on forever about that. Like, it's just like being happy. Happy is not even happy anymore in 2026. Somebody would have been happy with having two Twix bars, right? Two Twix bars, chips and Doritos, sitting on the couch watching your favorite Disney movie. That's something that was happy back in 2013. Don't you think that's insane? In 2026, now if you do that, people will call you poor. Remember that. With the perception of people fighting each other, the middle class fighting each other, we also have to go, like, there's also those things that I haven't even talked about, is that why is the middle class fighting each other? Why are we doing that? There's proof. There's so much I can say about that. I have people who are supposed to be familiar with me, right? Who would fight in between themselves as a middle class while complaining about their government and fighting themselves in between themselves as middle class workers. That should be eye-opening to people. Then repeat that, right? Sink it into the AI summary for this video when it posts. There are people in the middle class, teenagers, adults, not kids, who are arguing between themselves about electricity bills, rent, life, and ego right now, right? And are arguing in between themselves while complaining about the government, right? Not working together and then arguing in between themselves. That is crazy to me. I did this with one cousin of mine that doesn't live where I am. My cousins are just nice people, the ones I live with. The other cousins I had this turmoil with. I said, "You're in this turmoil all for you to then complain about the government. So as the middle class, shouldn't we work together and fix the government rather than arguing with each other about who can drive a car? Rather than who can drive a car and complaining about the government at the same time, we should probably fix the affordability for cars and car licenses rather than beating each other up with fists and knuckles," which had seen with, between cousins of mine that I know who operate cars like Honda or Toyotas, who I know who live in more farther parts of Florida, and they complain about cars or make fun of people who can't drive a car. And I'm like, people that around you that can't afford a car are most likely people who work two jobs and are suffering and probably don't need your bullshit right now, and probably would have cried and went on their knees to get a car like you have. Most people can't get licenses, and most people are so sick they can't even get licenses. This happened when I had seen this cousin who was bragging about their Honda or something, right? And I was like, this is supposed to be they had their other cousin, right? Their cousin or their brother or whatever from their separate different family up here. And I was like, you're bragging about your Honda and your friend having a Ford that comes from like 2002. They badly wanted a Ford or as some form of driving. They needed a form of vehicle, and they had it passed on to their parent. And you're the same person who's complaining about Donald Trump making gas and oil expensive, while also fighting your own cousin and making fun of them for having an older car. Why are we talking about whose car is better and also complaining about the government's gas and oil issue? Why are we doing that? We're the middle class. We're all poor. We're all working too much. We're all treated as nobody. So if you're complaining about government, we probably shouldn't make fun of their 2002 Ford. We probably should work together to make it affordable for them to get a better car. And in return, you get a better car and a cleaner Honda. Why are we fighting as middle class workers making fun of each other's car model? That is one of the most stupidest, most retarded things I can hear. A cousin of mine and another cousin of mine who lives in different states argue with about a car. We hate corruption, so why are we fighting each other? Makes no sense to me. So why does Visue like to help broaden things sometimes, but also sometimes dependent on things as well? Is because I often see some really hurtful conversations I see between people who should be helping each other, where I see a person who I know who's from Indonesia argue with somebody who's from Brazil, or equally hating of their government, and then making fun of each other because of the clothing they wear. Why are we fighting over what clothing we wear? Some of the very first lessons we learn as children is not assume people based on the cover, right? And I unfortunately still have people doing that to this day. For example, my father loves to racially profile people and judge people by their cover. But he's still a respectable, hardworking person. But is the same person to not be able to tell me what democratic socialism is and fight in between each other for better pay and a job, and not understand that we both are suffering and both probably need higher paying jobs so that we can stop working too much and start focusing more on our families rather than just basically assing out on jobs, right? We hate corruption, we hate racism, we have similar dislikes, similar hate, and we fight as middle class working citizens who are supposedly the least racist type of people you should meet. Hispanic Americans and Mexicans, who you would normally think are less racist people. You would assume that from most Americans and how bad their geography is, you would assume there's less racism and less racial profiling. But my dad ensues on racial profiling while I do the exact opposite. But we have one thing in common. We hate fascism. But why are we fighting each other? My confusion. Another one. I had somebody this girl who had a boyfriend. Her boyfriend was conservative. She was liberal, democratic, socialist, but her boyfriend was conservative. And this boy wouldn't stop talking about the length of her hair and the size of her waist, saying that it looks really Hispanic Latina and looks really dirty. That she looks like a twat, like a hoe, right? And that was a conservative boyfriend. But here's one thing that they both have in common. They hate fascism. But for some reason they argue over hair, a waist, and somebody's look and apparel. You start to notice the very, very similar patterns. Most middle class people, as much as they educate each other on you should not judge people by their cover, or you should not be racist, or you should be kind, as much as the middle class, you think the middle class is wise, most of the middle class that you see are just people who would often argue about the smallest things and then realize, oh, we're the same, we hate fascism, we hate racism, we hate sexism, and we want to be paid more and we want to be treated fairly. But for some reason, you have the middle class fighting over each other over the smallest features about somebody's look, appearance, and how they speak. Another example, there's this person who would say that the Polish people are so rude and so self-centered. Coming from a person who lives in Ukraine. A Ukraine person saying that Polish people are self-centered and care about themselves, or probably are pretty really reserved people. But then you go to Poland and you find that most people are just more impatient, but they also hate Putin. Ukrainians hate Putin. The Polish people hate Putin. But then they argue about somebody's impatience, self-care or ego, rather than focusing on Putin and his rapid expansion into Ukraine, illegally killing people. And though both sides understand that if they were together they would be doing great things, people are for some reason having turmoil about who is more egotistical. Why are we fighting each other? This is something I always see everywhere. There are people who supposedly have the same, most broadest agreement possible, and then have the most stifling, most independent, smallest details be argued about in between themselves, but yet have the same common broad agreement. Like, there are two sides of the Projecttian on one coin. One side is confront, care, observe, understand. The other side is, why are we fighting? Pointless, clueless, confusion, right? There's two sides of my coin. There are people who are like, duh, they're gonna change. Then there are people who are like, why do you need to change? You're good as you are. Do you hate fascism? Yes. They would agree with me. I'm like, okay, let's stop talking about whose teeth is straighter. We hate fascism. Can we work together? No, but we're not that different. We hate racists. We hate Nazis. Yeah, true. So we should work together. Make the government better for the people, right? Cool? Chill? And they say, okay. So, and here's a more ineffective, more unproductive argument. I'm gonna give an example. You hate fascism. Your nose looks big. You look ugly. Don't you hate fascism? You look horrible. You speak weird. Bro, don't talk about my voice. I'm talking about your voice. It sounds bad. Sounds like SpongeBob. And then the argument starts sidetracking. And nothing is achieved. No agreement. Nothing. Fighting. Infighting. Physical argument maybe. End of story. The productive argument showed somebody going, okay, yes, we have a very broad agreement and similarity. We hate fascism. So rather than focusing on somebody's teeth or face or their voice, nope. On to topic. Let's work together. We hate fascism. We hate bad people. We hate Nazis. And so we start listening to each other. We start talking about our cars or who can drive. No, shh. We talk about the major problem that is more larger than us at front and is something we should probably care about. Techno-fascism, Nazis, and then real fascists, dictators, oligarchy, kleptocracy, and media consolidation, and global censorship war. We have to focus on those things. So rather than saying that this game is too easy, or you look ugly, or because I can drive faster than you, or I'm taller than you, or my penis is bigger, rather than going for those things, let's go, can we help fix techno-fascism and remove it from our social media so that whenever we post, we have nicer people finding our posts and not a bunch of bots filling your comments, making you think that you have more people following you. You know, we gotta fix that. What does it take? Talking about our penis size and driving faster or looking more handsome? No. I don't think talking about those things help fixes the bot issue. You see what I'm working with. I hate seeing people sidetrack to very small things, and then the middle class fight over each other over the smallest things. In which, when rich people, trust me, talk to a rich person, and they're gonna tell you, talking about those small things is meaningless, trivial, because rich people don't have to worry about those small things. So you have to get into the mindset of somebody who is rich, powerful, connected. They don't have time to talk about trivial things like their penis size all the time, or who is cooler, or who is stronger, or who is more of an Edgar or something. They don't have those things. They don't care. Rich people don't care about those things. So then they start using inflammatory language in social media on purpose to have the middle class fight each other. Why? Because the middle class doesn't have $1 million in their bank account. So they can't just ignore these trivial things that rich people call trivial concepts, because they don't have to live with having to be in a low income family, right? They don't care. They have the money to spend whatever and hang out whatever. The middle class has to labor into success before they can be rich. And because the government is so rigged, well, when I see the middle class fighting each other and trivializing every single bit of thing that they talk about in their life or somebody else's life, it makes me sad. It makes me disappointed in the middle class, because as much as we glamorize the middle class for being the backbone of this country, for example the US, lots of the middle class cannot stand to have their ego stroked. Look, the middle class is a working class, right? We can't get that wrong. They're people who worked in labor and most likely never studied. Most likely never studied further. 30 to 20% of people would continue their education. That means a majority of people you'll talk to are hard-headed and will trivialize the smallest things about themselves to win an argument. Most rich people don't have to worry about trivializing these arguments because they have money. So why would they argue about whose hair looks cooler? They can just go buy shampoo, shower every day, use as much water they want. Why would they talk about who uses more water, who is using more money for rent? They don't care about those things. So whenever people argue about rent or who pays more rent, they should shut the fuck up and start thinking about how rich people don't care about the rent because they have so much money. So whenever the middle class fights each other, they're killing the middle class. You're making the middle class harder to unite. And when we're not able to accept our differences, right? And we can't agree on some broad agreement, the middle class gets weaker, more divided, more racially racially divided too. Even, yes, even the middle class has middle class racists. Most conservatives are middle class workers. Even though they are brainwashed, they still are middle class working people. They live paycheck to paycheck, as the people I know live paycheck to paycheck. So when we trivialize and we fight and we have turmoil and we decide to hurt each other and weaken the middle class, I just want to remind you that the rich people out there don't have to care about their profits. They don't care about their appearance most of the time, unless it's something personal that they care about their appearance. They don't care about those things. You're stealing my Tux bars. A rich person wouldn't even care. They say, oh, I can just buy more Tux bars. Why would they care? Somebody here, same thing for me. Why is your computer so big? You should clean that. You should dust it off. What would a rich person say? They don't care. They can just have somebody else clean it for them. So why would they trivialize that? Oh, I'll just have my brother do it. We should do it together. Rich people have all the time in the world. Middle class workers. Clean that. Do that. Do it yourself. You're ugly. You're lazy. That doesn't look like positive language to me. That doesn't look like respectable democratic socialist language to me. You see what I'm going with? So, yeah, even the middle class has its deficiencies, right? It's inefficient. A lot of the conversations I've been having with people who are middle class workers often are productive whenever we get into politics that's very broad of its own, but whenever we get into more personalized things, they immediately get unproductive and really inefficient and get really antagonized. And you see, that's where the issue lies, is that I don't think most people, whenever they speak with me, understand that when I say that something is bad or factually wrong, now you know that what I mean is that in the long term, in my vision, when I see people not understand my vision or try to disqualify by saying, he has no job, I'm like, you're looking at the short picture, right? Let's say, and I often do this to people. So if I had to pass away to prove a point, how many people would be affected by me passing away? Thousands. Why? Because I'm so interconnected with thousands of people. They would know me. The time I disappear for a year, I'm proven dead. Gone. What would happen? Where were the works and efforts I've done? They still exist even if I'm passed away. If I passed away, my work still exists. Why? Because I posted everything, I shared everything, I emphasized everything, I discussed everything, I worked with people. Those memories will stick with them for the rest of their life. Even the haters who I often dehumanize, who I often try to understand, still care about me. I go away, what is the reaction? It wouldn't be mockery, it'd be that 0.01% that mocked me when I die. But the rest of everybody who would be haters would end up turning into, oh, okay, I didn't mean that. You know, that's in his 20s. Rather than hating, they're just gonna try to go, oh, that was so sudden. And then they're gonna end up looking into my work, they're gonna go into my history, they're gonna go and look into my projects, my comments. Somebody might hack my account and just see what I posted, what I've been sending people. They're gonna get into my personal life, they're gonna look into my clothing, they're gonna look into my ownership on things, they're gonna look into my files and devices, and they're gonna figure out that I've been paying so much attention to people's words, that I've been following people, that I've been looking at people, listening to channels and hearing podcasts, searching up adult sites, going to dark websites, going to different connection sites, political sites, gaming sites. I even went to adult NSFW sites. And I've talked with people. They have seen my alternate accounts. They have seen everything I've done, all the works and the songs that I've never released when I pass away. They would have seen all of those things, many, many more. Even my private memories, my private photos would be leaked if they had seen if someone broke into my accounts. And you notice, oh shoot, Vince is just a flawed human being, and he was just like us. He has embarrassing things, he hates things, he dislikes things, he likes people, he thinks that girl is cute, he thinks his artwork looks ugly, his hair looks weird, he talks with numerous girls, Oh, he did this thing. Oh, we talked with this guy last 5 days ago. I didn't know he was so involved. Oh, he was the maker of that album. I didn't know that was him. And they would have checked my TikToks and would have noticed that I've been so constant and very receptive about things. They would have looked into all my videos after I passed away and then gone, oh, he really meant what he said. The more you learn, it's too hard for people to accept that. Whenever there's this famous phrase that comes to mind when I talk about for the past 1 hour and 30. You never appreciate it until it's gone, sometimes. Rather than, like, some people would then return that and say, hey, don't be sad they're gone, be happy they were here. Right? Some people would retaliate with that, but you gotta think first. That phrase, the initial phrase, before we, counterclaim that with that one. It's you never learn to appreciate it more until it's gone. Like, until it's gone, you then begin to appreciate how that person existed. That's how I look into people. My time with them is reserved. It's short. It's cut. I'm mortal. I'm not infinitely stronger than them. I don't know everything about the world. My brain can only calculate so many things at once. Right? I'm a flawed being, flawed human being. When I talk with people, when I see them hate me, it's childish to me. It's sad. And often it makes me feel depressed when I see people hate each other in the middle class. Just throw trivial things. And so whenever, let's say, I say if I do pass away, this stupid example, they would not appreciate me until it's gone, right? Say theoretically I get appreciated until I'm gone, and people go, oh shoot, he was like a pioneer for his time. All they'd find is somebody who's done mistakes, learn from them, and improve. I'm even able to recite my mistakes. The amount of times I shoplifted in my youth, like stealing candy, numerous times in stores in my time. Yes, I can admit to me shoplifting. Have I committed a crime before? It is a form of crime. I've shoplifted as a kid and as a teenager. I've done it before. Have I hit girls before? Have I hit them? Have I abused anybody before? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Have I broken somebody's bone before? Nope, unfortunately not. But there were people who I wanted to punch in the face. Did I do it? No. Did I think about it? Yes. I'm not exactly perfect, right? I can be nuanced. But for some reason, the same person who would punch a girl in the face like I did, who would try to bully her because she had such a fascination with AI in an early time, because there were people who were fixated on things. I would make fun of this girl because of the way she drew. I'd done that before. Yes, I did. I'm the same person who said you shouldn't make fun of people for their style of art. The same person, years back ago, I made fun of a girl's art style and their fixation on AI. I did that. Horrible human thing I did. Horrible thing I did. Do I regret it? Absolutely. I still remember it. I still think about the days I hurt people. I can even say that in front of my camera and then post this video on YouTube and not cut out this part because I'm able to accept that. When I see people who send hatred or fight each other, I just think about how many things they could just accept and just admit when they send me this type of hatred. All it takes is admitting that you're wrong. It is not because I said so, right? Once somebody watches this video I post on YouTube soon, which I've been recording, once they see this video, they'll understand what I mean by wrong. It's not wrong because this, no. Complicated. So, crazy. He hates fascism, but he punched a girl and tried to bully her for art style back then. Yes, I did. But I'm the same person who hates fascism. I can be a nuanced human being. I can be imperfect. Just like how some people I know who would try to beat up people for having a different opinion would be the same person who votes for Joe Biden. Crazy. That should be a crazy thing. People can be extremely nuanced and complicated. Whenever people use the word complicated on human beings, trust me, oh my goodness, I can go on all day about complicated human beings who would do things that seem so morally correct, but then you look into their history, there would be things that they had done that were so bad that you're just like, holy goodness gracious. For example, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say something absolutely insane, right? I'm gonna say something absolutely insane. I'm gonna do this before cutting out the video with no context because I wanna make this a clip. The amount of times I had went into Roblox condo games just to find a bunch of PDF files in there, and how I got to those servers, you know how I did it? Asking actual PDF files to invite me to their Discord servers. I had to ask pedophiles and show them kindness to invite me to their Discord server. They find a condo, report the condo, get it taken down, and block the pedophiles right after, expose the name, put their names on list for the police to track down later. People would often think, don't you have to be a cybersecurity agent to do that legally? I'm like, yeah, I should have probably had a cybersecurity license in order to do that, legally, but I didn't. I still did it. What did I get me? Got a few pedophiles arrested. A few pedophiles got tracked by the police. FBI caught them, arrested them. And the amount of awful amounts of CSAM that I found was hideous. It was disgusting. And I saw it. 4K images of younger human beings being abused. I'm not saying on YouTube because this video will get taken down. So the amount of really no CSAM content I saw were disgusting. The amount of G-word gore was disgusting. Right? Real human beings out there, they're very little, who would do those things and say that looks cool. I think that's awfully disgusting, and I can't unsee it. You don't know how. I'll make a separate video for that. The experiences I had as a kid finding sites like those, which are just filled with really horrible things that I can't explain with full vivid detail on this channel. I'll say it somewhere else. I will censor it, but I can sidetrack all day about that. Anyways, that's all I have to say. And no, that's not all I have to say. I can go on for 8 hours, by the way, but that's all I have to say theoretically for this one. Anyways, this video will not be an hour 30 because I said so, and because I'll edit it, and because I'm not a funny human being. You should probably like this video. You know how, there were videos where I said to dislike the video. Those exist, by the way. Like the video. We're trying to reach the 10K goal. More from where that came from. Oh, Viz, did you go on a full-on ramble about nothing burgers? Well, if you didn't pay attention, then you're stupid and you're dyslexic and retarded. Right? I'm not apologizing. I'll just call you those names, those mental illnesses back towards you. If you had went for the past 1 hour 20 and have gathered nothing, then you're a person in denial, in our third stage of depression, and are probably in bipolar detected, and most likely dyslexic in the brain and not on writing. Right? Stay safe out there. Protest non-violently. I mean it. Protest non-violently. You will be arrested for breaking things and being violent. Alright, let's not do that. You can burn the flag. By the way, burn the United States flag. Should do it. That should be legal. And F Charlie Kirk, F ICE, F fascism, F techno-fascism, F Trump, F Kristi Noem, F Kash Patel, F Pete Hegseth, and F Stephen Miller, and F Chibi Reviews, F Nicholas Light, F Decoy Voice, F Leaflet Nasari, F Refsaz Desu, F Tectone, F Asmongold, F Nuxtaku, F Kirsch Westall, F Kaisenat, and F DY Cement. F West Farm, and F Netanyahu, F Putin, F Xi Jinping, and F Kim Jong-un. Fuck you. Go oof, go oof, go oof, die, go oof, go burn. Fuck you. Well, all of you. Die. Alright. Reform. Max Plus Jubilee. We got this one. Alright, we're going for another one. Are these videos going to get longer? Absolutely. This video is basically like me if somebody let me speak, right? If somebody let me finish, this video is basically a video where I finish what I'm trying to say. right? So in case anybody says, I'm going to argue with you, I'm just going to send them this video. I'm just going to straight up send them this video. You know, just a response. I'm just going to say, rather than arguing with them, I'm just going to send this video. You know, it breaks down how I think. So, a little bit. And... The Dark Knight GD, the Projecttian, Gamers United Together, Visit Press Nicholas. Oh, and check out my music, the Projecttian Bandcamp. My Bandcamp's new album, Vanta Black album. I'll promote my Vanta Black album in the next video. No, not the next video, but the video after this recording of when it was recorded from. And then talk about the graphic stuff I've seen on the internet, because that stuff is crazy. Anyways.